Hey everybody, welcome back to a channel about watches. Happy 2023, this is my first video of the year. I'm going to be recording using my MacBook laptop instead of using my phone, and hopefully this will actually work better than using my OnePlus 7 Pro. So yes, this is going to be a state of the collection video. My collection is actually doubled or even more than doubled depending on how you look at it. So a lot of new watches, but I've been more conservative with the choices that I made. Nothing really that expensive this time around, but still a lot of interesting timepieces. And so how this is going to work is I'm going to be showing the watches roughly in chronological order from the first watch or the oldest watch that I've had up until the most recent one. So to start us off, we have the Casio A158. This watch I've had since I believe November 2019. I got this watch from Black Friday for about 20 bucks Canadian on Amazon. Nowadays, you can find this watch for about $30 to $40 Canadian. So inflation has definitely hit, especially for the more affordable watches. You can see the watch prices go up by 50 or 100%. But for this watch, I wear this a lot when I go traveling. You know, I don't want to risk losing my more expensive watches. So with the Casio A158, I don't mind if it does get lost because I can always buy another one. And it's just such a nice compact watch. It has all the features you need for a watch. You know, it has technically a perpetual calendar, you know, a nice display. It's quartz, there's the night light, there's a stopwatch, so it really has everything you need. So I would recommend this as a travel watch because it works really well. This watch is probably going to stay in my collection forever. I really have no use of selling it just because, you know, the value isn't that much, but also because I've had so many memories with it. I've been to Guatemala with it, I've been to Vancouver, Toronto, Vegas, New York, or sorry, not New York, I had another watch for that. But I've definitely traveled a lot with it, so it has seen a lot of mileage. So this is, yeah, my oldest watch in my collection, and it's the one I've traveled with the most. All right, the next watch on my list is the Citizen Chronomaster AQ4020-54Z. This watch is the one that I get asked about the most, about how they can buy it. Unfortunately, it is a limited edition of 200, so it is a little bit difficult to find nowadays. But yeah, this is the most expensive watch in my collection. I think it's definitely the star piece. It's so unique with the red washi paper dial and the gold emblem for Chronomaster. It looks great in all sorts of lighting conditions, but especially in the bright lighting conditions, you can really see the texture of the dial. And that Zaratsu polishing on the hands and indices makes it really easily legible, even if the lighting isn't that great. So I wear this watch, actually not as much anymore. I wear it about once a week because I just have so many other watches in my collection, but always make sure to give this some wrist time because it's just such an amazing timepiece. Even though it's Citizen, and a lot of people, they wouldn't spend that much money on a Citizen watch, and that's basically just based off the brand. It's not based off the quality of the movement or, you know, the materials or the design. It's just because they see Citizen, they don't think it's worth that much. But I really like this watch, and this is another permanent timepiece. I don't think I'll ever sell this watch just because it's so unique. And yeah, I just love it. So now the third watch in my collection, I have the Casio A100. This is the Pac-Man edition of this watch. And I got this watch because I love Pac-Man and I really like the bracelet design. I still really like the bracelet design. That's kind of my draw for this watch. I'm not a huge fan of the gold case, to be honest. I feel like it's a little bit too much gold. And also the display is kind of hard to read in a lot of lighting conditions. I think negative displays just don't work as well as positive displays. So unfortunately, I don't really wear this watch as much as maybe I want to or as I should. I think I wear this probably like once a month, maybe once every 2 months. So it doesn't get that much wrist time. But actually this watch, I could probably sell it for a profit. I've seen these on eBay for about $200 Canadian, and I bought this one for about $70 Canadian. So I could even maybe pull a profit, but there are some scratches and some dings starting to form. But yeah, I really like the Pac-Man design. I don't actually have that many collaboration watches, but I feel like this Casio Pac-Man, this collaboration, it kind of makes sense, right? Because it's kind of that vintage look. But yeah, I really like this watch. And even though I don't wear it that much, I do like having it in my collection. All right, the next watch in my collection, I actually don't wear it at all anymore. It's been sitting in storage for quite a few months now. That is the Shanghai Watch. I got this watch about a year ago in the beginning of 2022. And the reason why I don't wear this anymore is for two reasons. The first one is I actually have another Shanghai watch that I know for sure is real. And the second reason is that I'm actually planning on giving this away as part of a giveaway sometime later in this channel. But yes, this is a Shanghai Watch. This was known as the Rolex of China back in the day. It is a hand winding movement, no hacking, no date. So quite a basic watch, quite industrial looking, but there's a lot of history to it. And I made a video about it in case you want to check it out. So yeah, this watch, it's just in storage because it will be given away, but it's a nice little watch. And I only got it for $40 Canadian. So that's like $30 US. So I think that's a great deal for a mechanical watch. All right, next up, we finally see a Seiko in my collection. This is the Seiko STBR021. This watch, I found it from Japan, which is a proxy website for Japanese watches. And honestly, the reason why I bought this watch is because I like how it looked. Nothing more than that. I like white things. I like the white design of this watch. And it's nice that it's a solar powered watch as well. So this Seiko diver, I think it's about 42, 43 lug to lug. So that was another reason why I bought it, is because I knew I would actually be able to wear it, even though it does look a little bit chunky on my wrist. But yeah, I definitely like it. This is the first time I had a watch with a silicone strap, and I like the silicone strap. It's very comfortable. It's very nice. I like the tuna design of these watches. I can finally understand why people like this tuna design. And I wore this a lot in the summer because I feel like silicone straps feel nicer compared to leather straps when the weather's hot. But sometimes I'll wear it in the winter too, and it's been working pretty great. And that's really all I have to say about it. It looks nice, it's not like a special movement, not the most unique design, but it definitely fits nice on my wrist, and I think it looks nice. Next up, we have a watch that I have not featured on the channel yet. This is another Shanghai watch, but I believe this is a 100% genuine Shanghai watch. And the reason why I say that is it's been sitting in storage for probably 20 to 30 years. This watch actually belonged to my grandfather. So he bought this watch in the 1980s. So Shanghai Watch, I think it's existed since at least the 50s or the 60s. So this one's a later model. This was when Shanghai Watch wasn't really known as the Rolex of China anymore, because Rolex started to be imported into the country. So this isn't the Shanghai Watch during its heyday, but it is still a Shanghai Watch. And I was actually able to get it serviced, not here in Canada. Actually, no one was able to get it serviced in Canada, but it was serviced in China. So that's really awesome. And I'm going to do a video on this because I feel like this is a very special watch. So I won't say too much, but definitely stay tuned for the review and a longer video on this genuine Shanghai watch. This next watch is arguably the most popular watch of 2022. That is the Moonswatch, and I got the Uranus model for myself. I really like turquoise dials. I really wanted the Tiffany dial Rolex Oyster Perpetual, but I feel like this Moonswatch works just as well. So yeah, this watch was super popular. I think it was announced back in March and released later that month. So super popular. I was able to get this, I believe around September or October of this year, or maybe November. It was around sometime in the fall. And I really like the dial. I like the design of it. Even the strap, even though I don't know how long it'll last. It looks really nice though. And yeah, I don't know how long this watch will last because honestly, the build quality doesn't seem that great. The bioceramic feels very cheap. The pushers, I feel like, one cold winter day, I feel like it could break off from being so brittle. But until then, I really enjoy this watch. I really like how it looks. And really, this is another watch where I bought it because it looks really nice. And of course, the history behind it. Even though it's a 2022 watch, there's a huge amount of history compared to other watches. Just think about the hype around it, thousands of people lining up, people hating it, people loving it. That's all represented in this watch here. And I think it really helped the whole watchmaking industry, the whole watchmaking community. Everyone's eyes were on watches for a brief moment of time, which I think is really cool. This next watch here is a true Omega watch. That is the Omega Seamaster 2263.80. I just reviewed this watch about a month ago, and it's my first real Omega watch. I really like it. I've always wanted a Seamaster with the electric blue dial and the wavy pattern, but I wanted one with solid hands, not the skeletonized ones. And of course, I wanted one at a good price. So it took about 2 years to find one where I finally decided that this was the time to buy in. And I got this for about $1,000 Canadian from Yahoo Japan auctions. And it was during a time where the yen to Canadian dollar exchange rate was really good. So I think I got really lucky with this one. And it's such a nice size, 36 millimeters in diameter. I think is a great size for a diver watch, especially for people like me who have really small wrists. So if you are looking for around a $1,000 watch, like you could just get a brand new Seiko or brand new Tissot, but you can actually look at the vintage Omega models. If you want a luxury Swiss watch, Omega does have vintage watches, vintage quartz watches that will sell for about $1,000. And I think there's tons of character. The build quality is great. And yeah, I think this is a great choice for a small wristed diver watch. The next watch I'm going to show is something that you may be familiar with if you saw my Grand Seiko GS9 event video. The watch I wore during that event was this right here. This was the Seiko Grand Quartz, the vintage model. This watch is completely covered in gold, and usually I don't like gold watches, but this one I feel like because there's contrast with the hands and indices because they're black and then the dial is gold, the case is gold, it just looks super nice. Definitely has a nice vintage look. Unfortunately, the gold is actually starting to rub off, and when I took this to a watchmaker to get their battery replaced and one of the gaskets replaced, he said that the reason why the gold is kind of fading off is because whoever owned this watch probably sweated a lot. They were very sweaty, and the sweat actually kind of corroded away the gold. And then beneath that gold is not stainless steel, it's another type of metal. So if you look at the back or the sides, you kind of have that grayish metal underneath. So it's not in the best shape, but it looks really, really nice. And I only got this for $20. It was on Yahoo Auctions Japan, and I guess the person who listed it, maybe they didn't have the best photos, they didn't have the best title and description, so no one actually bid on this watch. This watch, again, the starting price was $20 and I bought it for $20. So this was a great steal, and I love having this in my collection. I like having vintage watches, especially Seiko. I don't have enough Seikos in my collection, so the Seiko Grand Quartz has definitely earned a spot in my collection. Alright, so that's actually the end of my main collection, but I want to show you two bonus watches that I'll be reviewing later this year. The first is the Casio F84. This is basically like the F91W, but the F84W is the Japanese version. The specs are a little bit different, the design's a little bit different, so I think this is going to be an interesting watch to compare to the F91W, which I do have sitting around, but I'm not going to show it because everyone knows the F91W. The other watch I want to show you guys is a pretty unique watch. This is a My Neighbor Totoro Seiko Alba watch, and there's actually a display case back for the mechanical movement. So yeah, this watch I got recently from Yahoo Japan Auctions. It was a limited edition of 2,000 pieces, and it's such an interesting watch. I don't think there's any videos online, there's no articles online about it, so I want to feature this watch on my channel so that people around the world can see this Totoro watch. And it's a nice, cute watch. I don't know what the movement is inside of it. Nothing complicated, but I think it looks really nice, and it's such a unique and interesting timepiece. Alright, as we go towards the end of the video, I want to take some time to talk about watches that did not survive till the end of the year. So these are watches that I sold for a variety of reasons, and we'll start with the Seiko Lordmatic, the 5606-8100. This watch had a honey gold dial, which I really liked. I also liked the multifaceted crystal, but I didn't like how the watch looked quite different in certain lighting conditions. Sometimes it had that honey gold look, and sometimes it looked like burnt honey, and it was sometimes hard to read, especially in direct lighting conditions. So I ended up selling that watch. That watch stayed in my collection for maybe a few months at most, but then I quickly sold it right after. And then the next watch that I sold would be the Rolex Air King 5500. That watch, again, it lasted for maybe 1 or 2 months in my collection. I always wanted a Rolex in my collection, and I felt like the Rolex Air King was a humble way to start my journey with Swiss watches. And it looked not too bad, but I felt that it was a little bit too boring, and I felt like it just wasn't worth the money at the time, so I ended up selling it. And yeah, no regrets with that one. It was fun to have and to make a video on, but it was definitely not something that I would keep permanently. And then the next watch that I sold was the Citizen ProMaster Nighthawk BJ7000-52E. This watch I actually owned in the past about 3 or 4 years ago, but I ended up selling it because I didn't like the strap it was on, actually, of all things. So I thought that buying this one a second time with this metal bracelet, I would have different opinions, and I felt at the time that I would keep it. But the problem with this one was that it just felt too bulky on my wrist. I believe the diameter of the dial is 42 millimeters, and even though the lug to lug is only 47, because the dial is so big, it just feels like a giant hockey puck on my wrist. So even though I like the design, and I usually don't like complicated watch designs, but this one, I don't know, this one I really liked. So even though I'd like the design, the size was just too big for me. The most controversial watch sale this year was with the SBGA 427. I like Grand Seiko watches and I like spring drive, but I found this dial to be a little bit too bland and boring. I got a fair amount of backlash for selling this watch, but I still don't regret it. I know that someday in the future, I'll own a Grand Seiko again. And the final watch that I sold this year, this one was pretty recent. It was the Rolex Air King 14000, the one with the Roman numeral or the Buckley dial. This watch, I like the design more than my Air King 5500. We had the updated specs with the sapphire crystal, but I felt like that the power reserve of 40 hours was just too low. The size was admittedly just a little bit too small, and I just felt like with the economy and everything happening, it just doesn't make sense for someone my age to be owning a Rolex at the time. So I ended up selling that watch, but I will definitely get a Rolex, or I will hopefully get a Rolex someday, because I do like having that Swiss watch collection side of things. And my Omega Seamaster started it, but I think it would go nicely with a Rolex as well. Alright, so just to summarize what we talked about in this video, the watches you see in front of you is my permanent collection. So we start off with the Casio A158, and then that was from 2019. This is the Citizen Chronomaster from 2020. This is the Casio A100 Pac-Man edition from 2021. Then all these watches here are from 2022. So we start with the Seiko STBR021, the Shanghai Watch, which unknown model number, this is from my grandfather, the Omega Moonswatch, the Uranus model, the Omega Seamaster, and then finally, this is the Seiko Grand Quartz. So this is kind of representation of my watch taste. I would definitely like to have more watches. There's definitely some gaps in my watch collection, but of course with the economy, we'll see how many more watches I'll be able to handle. And then finally, here are some watches in my non-permanent collection. So these are watches that I'm going to either sell or give away. We had the Shanghai Watch from AliExpress. This will be part of a giveaway. We have the Casio F84W that I'm going to make a video on. We have the Totoro watch, the Seiko Alba Totoro watch, limited edition. This is a Casio F91W. This is probably made for kids, but it'll work in the comparison video between the F91W and the F84W. This is that Seiko Quartz tank watch that I made a video on earlier. Still don't know the model number yet, but we did. Someone commented that this watch is probably from the 1970s. So that's pretty interesting. And then we have another dress watch from Seiko. This one I also got from Japan for just a few bucks. And maybe I'll do a quick video on that one as well. So that's it. That's the state of my collection starting from the beginning of 2023. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of my collection. Let me know if there's any gaps or any watches you think I should acquire in the new year. And yeah, just let me know your thoughts. My hope this year is that I'll be able to post a video once every 10 days at least. I want to kind of pick up some slack and actually focus on my channel more. So hopefully I'll be able to make a video once every 10 days and you can get to see more rare watches like that Seiko Totoro watch or the Casio F84W watch. But until then, subscribe for more videos. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.